On April 21st and April 28th, 2002, the two-part episode Legends of the animated series Justice League aired. In it, The Flash, the Green Lantern, J'onn J'onzz, and Hawkgirl of the Justice League found themselves in an alternate universe resembling the utopian ideals of the US in the 1940s and 1950s. There, they met a team called the Justice Guild of America, similar to their own Justice League, made up of the Streak, the Green Guardsman, Tom Turbine, Catman, and the Black Siren. Now, this episode could easily be seen as just an excuse to riff on the campy history of comics.
My ring has no power over aluminum.
Holy hijacking, Catman!
But they decided to do something really special instead. The story gains an actual emotional hook through its use of the Green Lantern of this show, John Stewart. You see, in this episode, John Stewart read comic books about the Justice Guild as a kid. It's explained as the writers of those comics having seen to an alternate universe and having written and published their adventures, unwittingly inspiring young John to become a hero and join the Marines and later become a Green Lantern. And now he gets to meet the very people that taught him the values he now fights for across the galaxy. It seems too good to be true. However, during the course of the League's parallel universe adventure, they discover things that are wrong. Newspapers without any words, an ice cream truck that never stops, and, most damningly, the graves of the members of the Justice Guild. It's eventually revealed that this Justice Guild of America was created by Ray Thomas, their tag-along kid reminiscent of Snapper Carr. And the original Justice Guild? Well, they were killed defending the people of the Earth during a nuclear war 40 years prior. The Justice Guild that they met is just an illusion. But when it comes down to it, these facsimiles make the same decision that the real Justice Guild did, by sacrificing themselves to defeat Ray and give their world a chance to live.
We died once to save this Earth, and we can do it again.
And in the end, it is a very bittersweet moment, because these people have to rebuild after a nuclear war, but at least they now have free will and can make decisions for themselves. This episode is a very good self-contained story about the value of heroes, how they can lead by example, and how they can make the hard choices the rest of us may not be able to. In my opinion, though, what occurred behind the scenes that led to this episode's creation is quite possibly even more interesting. You see, the people working on the series didn't just come up with the Justice Guild out of nowhere, and if you've read the title of this video, you know what I'm talking about. The Justice Guild of America is actually based on another, older superhero team, widely considered to be the first of its kind, the Justice Society of America. And if you're at all familiar with those characters, it starts to make a lot of sense. Catman, the non-powered cat-themed vigilante with fighting prowess and arsenal of gadgets, is sort of an amalgam of Batman and Wildcat. Tom Turbine, the genius physicist with superhero strength and flight, is the original Atom, and also kind of Superman. The Streak, superpowered speedster dressed in garnet and gold, is the Flash. Black Siren, the blonde and black with a superhuman sonic scream, is Black Canary. And most interestingly, the Green Guardsman is the original Green Lantern. You see, the most well-known versions of some of these characters are actually the second or third or maybe even fourth ones. Sure, characters like Batman, Superman, Green Arrow, Aquaman, they've pretty much stayed the same throughout the years. But Barry Allen and Wally West are actually the second and third Flashes. The first one was named Jay Garrick, a college science student who gained super speed after ingesting hard water vapors. And yeah, that is actually what happened. And Hal Jordan was the second Green Lantern, and John Stewart the fourth. And I think this really reframes the whole episode. These characters are not just weird alternate universe doppelgangers who inspired Green Lantern, but the true predecessors to the League, without whom their battle against evil, in the real world or in fiction, would not have been possible. The JSA, in our world, was introduced in All-Star Comics number 3, published in the winter of 1940 to 41. It's widely considered the first intercompany comic book crossover, even though all these characters are owned by the same company now, and more importantly, the first superhero team that really stuck around. And since the Justice Society is being featured in the Black Adam movie, I figured I'd talk about the original super team and why it still matters. Since we were just talking about Green Lantern, since he's the main character of this episode, let's look at how he's changed throughout the years as sort of a microcosm of how the JSA as a whole has changed. Alan Scott, broadcasting magnate, was the original Green Lantern. He was created in 1940 by Martin Nodell and Batman creator Bill Finger. His powers were originally mystical, having gained them from a magical lantern, and he was actually quite successful, becoming a member of the Just Society of America. However, after the end of World War II, superheroes significantly decreased in popularity, with only the most successful heroes remaining in publication. After hanging on for a few years, he made his last appearance in 1951. But with the creation of the Justice League of America in the 60s, came a revival of the JSA. Similar to the Justice Guild, the JSA inhabited a universe called Earth 2, parallel to the JLA of Earth 1. And the two teams would do annual crossovers. They would do these every year from the mid-60s until Crisis on Infinite Earths. They did these for 22 years, which is really impressive. After a while, the JSA's adventures in the Justice League title proved interesting enough to readers that they got a revival in the 70s. We got new adventures with the first real superhero team. And what's particularly interesting here is that the JSA had actually aged, unlike the vast majority of comic book characters who just stay in their 20s or 30s for decades at a time. And with this aging came the introduction of new legacy characters to continue their mission to the present day. And here's where we finally get back to talking about Alan Scott. I'm sorry for taking that detour. You see, this revival introduced the two children that he had with his former enemy, Rose Canton. However, Rose had an evil alternate personality named Thorn. Do you get it? And gave her children up for adoption, afraid that her alternate personality would bring harm to them. These two children grew up to be the heroes Jade and Obsidian. They both joined Infinity Inc., a superhero team mostly composed of the successors to the JSA. And eventually they joined the JSA proper. And it was during this time on the JSA that Obsidian, son of Green Lantern, was actually revealed to be gay. Keep in mind, this was in 2006. Only 3 years after the remaining sodomy laws in the United States were struck down once and for all by the Supreme Court. This was during Bush's second term, one which he campaigned for on a platform with the promise of keeping gay marriage illegal. The 2000s were really a different world for LGBTQ people, and this was a risk. And this was one of DC's most important superheroic legacies. DC wanted a gay character in this time, and by making him a part of this important legacy, new people who might not have checked him out before had the chance to read about him. And when DC rebooted their universe in 2011 with Flashpoint and the New 52 titles, they made the JSA characters younger in the process, and therefore made Alan Scott too young to have children, too young to be the father of Obsidian. However, they kept the spirit of Obsidian around by making Alan Scott himself gay. So, and when the Doomsday Clock event happened and DC Rebirth came out and the timeline was restored to its original state, they brought back the original JSA and their supporting cast, leading to a nice moment where Alan Scott comes out to his own children as gay. This is why the Just Society matters really to me. They don't abandon the past. They incorporate new things and new ideas, and they move forward. Going back to Legends and the JGA, I think it's particularly interesting that the Guild are not portrayed as these morally pure icons, because while, yes, the Guild were portrayed as heroes, now it's time for a new generation to carry on their legacy and their values. It's fundamentally about how we need to move forward and not remain stuck in the past. Because while the JGA did a lot of great things in their time, they were also incredibly flawed. Quite frankly, this is literally shown in the episode, they were a little bit racist and misogynistic. That's just a simple fact.
You know your stuff. It's an honor to fight beside you.
The feeling's mutual. You're a credit to your people, son.
Thanks.
Nothing a tall, cold glass of milk won't cure.
I think I have some freshly baked cookies, too. Let's let the men talk.
But by carrying on their positive attributes and leaving their negative attributes in the past, we can make the world better. And while the JSA itself was never explicitly bigoted, I mean, look at their original roster. Everyone was white. And out of dozens of members, there were only 3 women. And one of them, Wonder Woman, was the team's secretary. And before anyone comments, I know that Wonder Woman was only the secretary because she had her own title and DC had the policy at the time that characters with their own title couldn't participate in team books. But, I mean, they didn't do that to Batman or Superman despite them being honorary members of the JSA, so yeah. But if you look at the later JSA, you see a lot more diversity. Wildcat 2 was a woman. Mr. Terrific is now a black man. And this is actually the most well-known version of the character. Alan Scott and his son are both gay, like I said. Stargirl is the successor to the misogynistic Star-Spangled Kid. Johnny Thunder's successor is a young black man by the name of Jakeem Thunder. Atom Smasher, the successor to the original Atom, is Jewish. I guess they're the Social Justice Society now, huh? Oh my god, that was terrible. I am so sorry. And again, I think that this is really why the Justice Society matters so much, and why we need to remember their example. Because by following in their footsteps, we can make the world better. I'm not trying to say that every marginalized person needs to lovingly embrace their oppressors. That's just insane. I'm not trying to say that. But I think it's good to reclaim the positive aspects of things like this rather than get rid of them entirely. I think it's also worth knowing there have actually been several attempts to permanently get rid of the JSA, but every time they come back. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths, an event that destroyed the DC multiverse and merged the 5 remaining Earths into a single new Earth, I said Earth a lot, they were brought into mainstream continuity as the generation of heroes preceding the Justice League that inspired them. They were then immediately sent off into another dimension to fight demons, erasing them from continuity, and they were stuck there from 1986 to 1991. When they made their grand return, they got a miniseries, and then an ongoing. And then in 1994, Zero Hour, A Crisis in Time, meant to resolve the continuity errors created by the Crisis on Infinite Earths. The vast majority of JSA members were killed off, with the remaining 3 retiring. When they came back again in the late 90s, they actually stuck around until they were relegated to an alternate continuity by Flashpoint, where they were replaced by another team called the Wonders of the World. Even this couldn't kill the team, as they formed a sort of society on this world, and the original JSA was brought back into main continuity by the meddling of Dr. Manhattan. And this even happens in adaptations. In the Stargirl series, most of the original JSA was killed 10 years ago, but when their villains, the Injustice Society of America, resurface, it's up to a new, more diverse group to carry on their legacy and defeat them. In Young Justice, Jay Garrick comes out of retirement to help the original Flashes, and later joins the Justice League. Hell, even in the Justice League animated series, where their JSA analog was extremely flawed and had to sacrifice themselves, it's up to the JL, and specifically Green Lantern, to carry on their legacy. I guess the thesis statement of this video is that Justice Society matters because we need to learn from the past. We certainly shouldn't let it define us entirely, but we shouldn't flat out ignore it either, since there are so many lessons we can learn from it. Oh shit, I need to tie this into Black Adam somehow, huh? I think it's interesting that half of the JSA characters featured in the movie are actually legacy characters. Dr. Fate and Hawkman are the original JSA members here, even if they changed Hawkman's race to from white to black, which I actually support since he's the reincarnation of an Egyptian prince. But I really think this is a testament to how far the JSA has come. It's no longer restricted to cishet white men old enough to have fought in World War II. It's a place for anyone who cares about making the world a better place. And I think that's beautiful.